And I remember being like, oh my God, breakfast at a wedding, that is so cool. I love breakfast. The cashier, of course, was too British to actually say anything, so she just kind of stared at me as more and more groceries piled up at the end of the line, and I just looked at them kind of in panic, not knowing what to do. Hey there, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American expat who's lived in the UK for the past almost 10 years, and today I am telling you the things that nobody told me before moving to the UK. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is probably clickbait. I'm gonna talk about like driving on the other side of the road or things that people did actually tell me, but no, these are 5 things that just kind of get lost in the shuffle of explaining expat life that people don't often mention. Some of them are super small and some of them are bigger lifestyle things, but I thought I would go through all 5 with you today. Okay, so thing number 1, that doesn't make sense. Number 1 thing that people didn't tell me before moving to the UK is that you have to bag your own groceries. Now, I have no problem with bagging my own groceries, but if you've been to the US or live in the US, you'll know that for the most part, we have somebody at the end of the grocery checkout situation who bags your groceries for you, maybe even helps you take them out to the car. So if you were to jump in and try and bag your own groceries in a lot of grocery stores in the US, people would think you were being really strange. Well, here, you don't have anybody at the end bagging your groceries for you. You're supposed to bag your own groceries. Again, don't have an issue with this. The problem comes when you don't realize you're supposed to do that. So the first time I did like a big grocery shop in the UK, I was waiting for someone to bag my groceries because that's just what I was used to. And the cashier, of course, was too British to actually say anything, so she just kind of stared at me as more and more groceries piled up at the end of the line, and I just looked at them kind of in panic, not knowing what to do. And eventually, I forget how I figured it out. Maybe somebody else in line was like, "What are you doing? Go bag your groceries." But that was definitely an embarrassing moment, and just nobody had ever mentioned to me that that's how you do it in the UK. So from then on, of course, I always make sure to be ready. You are encouraged to bring your own bags, but they can supply them for you. So you don't have this like paper or plastic question that we do in the US. It's all plastic bags or bringing your own reusable one. And it does become kind of like a game show where the cashier is just so good at ringing things through that they're just like sliding them down to you super quickly, but you're not well versed in bagging, so you're trying to shove everything in, and it can be comical, but that is the number 1 thing that people did not tell me before moving to the UK. The second thing that I didn't know was that at the end of the year, unless you are self-employed, you do not have to file taxes. Imagine that. The government actually already calculates all of your taxes for you, takes them out of your paycheck every month, and at the end of the year, they will send you an end of the year kind of statement, whether you owe. Hopefully you shouldn't if everything's been done correctly, but sometimes something could have like the wrong code next to it, or you started a job halfway through, blah, blah, blah. But they make it super easy. You don't have to file your own taxes unless you're self-employed, because then of course the government doesn't necessarily know what money you've been making, so then you have to file, but it's actually a super easy process. I still have to file US taxes because I am a US citizen. Even if you live out of the country for no matter how long, if you are a US citizen, you do have to file taxes in the US, even if that money is income from abroad, which I can talk about in another video. But when I go through the US taxes, I'm like, I need a PhD, 8 accountants, and like a degree in literature to figure out what all of this means. It seems so complicated to have to figure out exactly what to put down, and if you're doing it right and you're trying to do it right and you don't want the IRS to come after you, but there's conflicting information and blah, blah, blah. So I find it so easy in the UK to do my taxes, and that's something that nobody ever mentioned to me. The third thing that people didn't tell me before moving to the UK has to do with weddings, and I actually have 2 to do with weddings. So the first is you can only get married in a venue that has what they call a marriage license. So in the US, getting married is based upon the person who is marrying you having the right license. In the UK, it has to be that the venue also has a marriage license. So if you want to get married in your sister's gorgeous house in the countryside, you actually can't if there's no marriage license for that venue. It will not be a legally binding wedding. Again, I'm not from, but I moved to London and the Southeast. I now live outside of London, but in the Southeast of England. So if it is different elsewhere in the UK, comment below and let me know. But overall, the system is different and you cannot just choose any venue that you want. You have to make sure it has a marriage license. And I'll go on to number 4 because it also has to do with weddings. And that is that the reception dinner, what Americans would refer to as the dinner or the meal at the wedding reception, is often called the wedding breakfast. The first time that I heard wedding breakfast was when we were at a UK wedding for my husband's friend, and I remember being like, oh my god, breakfast at a wedding, that is so cool. I love breakfast. Who doesn't love hash browns, eggs, toast? Like, in my American mind was like, anything goes. I was so excited to eat breakfast at their wedding. Turns out, when we sat down and we were fed chicken and vegetables, it was not a breakfast. It was their reception dinner that they call a wedding breakfast. And the reason behind this that I have researched, so if you have other information, let me know, but I have researched and found out that the reason for this is simply because it is the first meal for a married couple together, hence breakfast being the first meal of the day, wedding breakfast. And number 5, the last thing that people did not tell me before moving to the UK has to do with stamps. So in the US, you buy a stamp, and it's a domestic stamp. You send your card or letter, and hopefully it gets there basically when it gets there. In the UK, they have 2 different kinds of basic stamps: first class and second class. So again, I didn't know this before moving here, and the first time I went to the post office to try and send a letter, they said, well, first class or second class? And I was like, I don't know how I want my letter to fly. So first class usually means that it should get there within the next working day. Second class is, of course, the slower one, meaning that it could take 2 to 3 days. This isn't always 100% accurate based on my experience. Sometimes we've had second class letters get there the next day, depending on where you're sending it to. And obviously first class, there can be some delays, but in general, when you are purchasing stamps in the UK or deciding how to send something, you will need to decide between first class or second class. And that was a surprise to me, having only 1 class of basic stamp in the US. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, some of the things were small and some of them are quite impactful on your lifestyle here in the UK, like bagging your own groceries. But these are things I genuinely did not know before I moved here. So if you are moving to the UK, I hope that you find this helpful. Again, leave a comment below with any questions or any experiences you have to share, and I'll see you next time.